All right, people. Hello, everyone who is attending us. Last week, Jill, we talked about making a place safe, the space safe. And we talked about why, we talked about she can't lay it down, he can't let it go. He can't lay it down, and he can't let it go. Mm-hmm. And the bottom line is that we can be in love, but we cannot let go of some things. Mm-hmm. And that this is not just for relationships. This is also for, what do you call it? I'm listening. I'm listening, I'm talking. This is also for people who are in families and they can't seem to get through certain hang-ups that they've experienced. They can't get through it. And so tonight will be about trying to let that stuff go. Hot dog it. Mm-hmm. Hold on.
Okay, y'all, Mr. Kyle touched something.
There you go. Hold on.
Right.
I'm just going to leave it alone.
Hello.
And so we talked about that, and today I thought, let me see, is this too far up or is this fine?
I'm fine. Are you all fine?
I'm fine, okay. I'm just going to have to leave it like this. I don't understand what's happening, but we'll see what's going on. So anyway, today I want to talk, I just began to think about the why we can't lay stuff down. The why we put something down, but we can't let it go. Mm-hmm. We got in this, excuse me, talking about us being able to be, we got in this talking about us being able to not be able to move on with our lives. And if we're not careful, we enter into a space of manipulation. Mm-hmm. Being manipulated and being controlled and also controlling. Mm-hmm. And so on this day, I said, well, let's talk about, we've talked about it before, but I would like to talk about some mindsets that we have that we cannot let go. And as long as we have these mindsets, we can't let go of what God is trying to do. Mm-hmm. And I was telling you how if you can't let something go, then what's going to happen is that it's going to torture you. Mm-hmm. And so tonight, the goal is to give you the why you can't let go, the why he can't let go, the why the family can't let go, the why the son can't let go, the why the daughter can't let go, the why we can love each other, but there's a couple of hot button issues we just can't lay them down and we can't let them go. Mm-hmm. Father, we thank you for this time. I thank you for this hour. Now, God, help Jill and I to be able to flow according to your spirit and your power. Let those who are listening and everyone under the sound of our voice, even if they're just clicking in or whatever the case may be, let them be able to hear the reality as it is, not as they want it to be. And give us brevity of speech and help us to be able to flow with one another and be able to understand, even if we need to finish each other's sentences, but be in the right space that we can give out the proper knowledge and wisdom and information to help someone transcend, transform, and go to the next level. God, I thank you for restoration, and I thank you for restoring us to the place we used to be. Help us, Lord God, not to want to just change things that we cannot change, but give us the power to see what we have, the power to change, and give everyone the will to be able to do so. And I thank you for harmony in the families. All those in agreement with your Creator said amen.
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 Amen. You know, let me say this. You know, I asked myself before.
I'm listening. Go ahead.
I'm squinting. This light is bright. But I asked myself before I came downstairs, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this?
Right.
You know, and I have had the privilege
Right.
of dealing with women, hearing their stories, sitting with them, hearing their secrets. And when I say their secrets, the things that they may have been too nervous or ashamed to tell someone else. And I've heard stories about, because this is about relationships, but there's not a woman that I have met that didn't want a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Even the ones that act like they didn't want a relationship, they want a relationship, they just didn't want relationships on someone else's terms.
Mm-hmm.
But they all wanted relationships, and I watched women, brilliant women, smart women, educated women. When it came down to relationships, they show a level of nervousness
Mm-hmm.
at times that was just it was childlike nervousness.
It was immature, and it was childlike.
It was childlike nervousness, or you know, I'm talking about from ages 18, sometimes 16. I think I talked to some 16-year-olds. No, well, not 18. This year, and she just told me, listen, Miss Jill, at the end of the day, I think she turned 18 this year, and she just said, I can't date anybody because she said the conversation go like this: how you doing? How your mother's doing? Can we have sex?
Right.
You know, and she said at some point, you know, you look for a space where that's not happening, but it is. So what am I saying in short? Nobody wants to sabotage something that they want and something that they care about. You know what I mean?
Right. Nobody
wants to sabotage a relationship or something that they've been waiting for, and then when it gets into their space, this childlikeness, this distrust, this childlike,
right.
not trust, but some kind of adult distrust shows up and just blows it.
Right.
Or they can't discern. Another thing that I care about is that they can't discern what's good for them.
Right.
And I've seen folks try to deal with a person who off the bat didn't want to be married.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't want to. Okay, that's what they said out of their mouth. So it's so confusing. So what's the best deal in terms of what we can do for you all, and what we hope to do to put you in a place where you can care enough about yourself and you understand yourself enough so that if the opportunity does come for you to have a relationship that is going to bring the proper kind of attention and care into your life, that you will recognize it and you won't push that away because of all the other things that has happened to your life. I've seen it, I watched it, and I know that is not what most of the women that I know and that I've had an opportunity to rub life with, it's not what they wanted.
Right. And so in that being the case, when you say women, it was Avery Sunshine's song that prompted me to begin to write these words and these notes, and it spurred me because she said it was all in my head. Mm-hmm. Everything I thought about, I made it up. It was nothing that you absolutely did. It was all in my head. Mm-hmm. And when I heard that song, a friend of mine had shared it with me, and when I heard that song, it changed my life because it made me realize that the scenarios that I was going through, mm-hmm. the things and the emotions that I was experiencing, it was all in my head, mm-hmm. which meant that I had the power to rewire or hardwire my mind and hardwire my brain so that I could respond and not react to things. Mm-hmm. And so in that, last time we were together, I said, if your family member or your partner or your loved one is an object of danger, then what's going to happen is that you're going to constrict, freeze, and you're going to not want to, you're going to submit because you don't know what to do with that energy. And now some of us, like when you talk about these women, that you would say it was childlike because we're going to talk about the why. Mm-hmm. Why is it childlike? Why is it that here she is a grown person, here she is 19, 20, 25, 30, some 45, mm-hmm. 50 years old, and still responding like a child? Why is he still responding like a child? Why is this man 70 years old, 76, and sounding like of 16-year-old. It's all in our head. And so we also said if your partner was a source of safety, then if they were, you would relax your defenses. If your loved one was a source of safety, they could have a conversation with you, a source of pleasure. And in other words, when you come around, it doesn't mean that y'all don't have challenges, but when you come into their space, they don't have to be on guard because they know they're going to lose a part of themselves when they walk away from this altercation, this conversation, or whatever it is that we're going through. And so when we do that, when we talked about it, the deal becomes, all right, what is happening with me? What is going on? And I said the why, I told you on the way here, Jill, I said the why is this. The why is this. Many of us are not willing to let go of our attachments. We are not willing to let go of the things that we have held on to. And so because we're not willing to let these things go, many of us fail to understand that we've got expectations. We're attached to expectations. We're attached to feelings. And what we want to do is break it down today and give you some understandings about what happens if you don't deal with your attachments, if you don't deal with your commitments and what it is that you are going through.
Right, and there's a theory out there, and it's not just a theory. I know it is. I have found some truth with it in my life, and that is, depending on how you are loved, depending on how, in terms of when you grew up,
I'm listening.
depending on how you are loved, it determines how you look for love, how you seek love, how you define love when you go into the world. I taught parenting classes, and I don't remember all of the different areas of parenting right now, but there were different areas in terms of there was some parents, I think they had eventually added a new one, and they called it neglectful. And so when you have that in your life, you know, you're not going to come out the gate trusting. You're just not going to come out the gate trusting. And a lot of our parents, I read this statement earlier and I wrote it down, and it talks about the best place to be as a child is if you were raised by someone who was aligned and in tune with your emotions. Okay. Right. Take a survey right now, and I will tell you that no, I was not raised by somebody who was attuned with my emotions. Right. Why is it important for me to say that to you? Because you can come back from whatever that is.
Right.
But my start was the same way. No, it wasn't attuned with my emotion, and this is how I knew. Because most people knew me when I was younger. They thought that I was quiet, but I wasn't. I was just avoiding the drama. Right. I was avoiding the anxieties of the adult. I could tell you that now, but I couldn't have told you that then.
Right.
You know, and so, you know, when I do parenting classes, and even when I wrote the book From the Hood to Harvard, one of the things, the areas that I try to push people into is being in tune with their kids' emotions, so that you can teach these children how to trust their own thoughts. Right. Because when you don't trust your own thoughts, you try to find somebody else who you think so much better than you, so that you can trust some thoughts, because we all desire to trust and feel safe. Right.
And I'm looking for my notes, and I realize it's on that iPad. So it's on that iPad. But I know enough to do this, and that is, many of us, we fail to see that we have patterns of avoidance. We have patterns of anxiety
in relationships.
We have patterns, and I'm glad you have some notes up here, of anxious. And some of us, we're insecure, and we're insecure because when we grew up, our security was challenged in our environment. Some of us don't understand. Like, I'm going to give you how we are committed to keeping a stumbling block in our way of growth. And I'll read that, but then we'll go back and say, well, why would we do this? And so I was talking about this whole attachment thing. And so when you look at commitments, many of us are committed. And when you are committed, that means that you're locked into a mindset. You're locked into a stronghold. You're locked into a pattern of thinking, and you're committed to that. And so many of us are unconsciously committed to hindering our journey and our family's journey. Now that sounds terrible. That sounds, I wouldn't be committed to that because I want to see my relationships thrive. I want to see my son thrive. I want to see my daughter thrive. I want to see my family thrive. But the relationship is a step into the unknown because we are unconsciously committed to things that are not even our own ideas. Well, sometimes we are committed to situations where we are reaping what we have not sown. We are reaping. When you do look at the laws of harvest, sometimes you reap what has not been sown. Sometimes you reap what others have been sown. Sometimes you reap the consequences of somebody else's hubris. Hubris meaning pride. Someone else's prideful hubris saying, I believe that I'm right and you're wrong. And so when many of us are committed to that, Jill, we're born into this world and we've been practicing something. And so let me just give you some examples. And I'll just name them, not in a specific number, but this. I commit to hiding the truth from myself and others.
Wow.
There's some of us who have committed to hiding the truth from ourselves and others. There are some who have committed to doing things that don't promote closeness. There's some of us that as much as we want and desire a relationship or we desire harmony in our family, we are committed to doing things that don't promote it. We are committed to behavioral patterns. We are committed to blaming everybody else for everything I don't like about myself and my life.
Right.
Which means we are committed now to carrying out that behavior. So when we're talking about this why would you be committed to doing something like this? I'm committed to suffering. I'm committed to suffering and being the emotional tone of my life. In other words, I commit to always suffering.
Right.
Never having peace. Whenever somebody sees me, woe is me, because I am committed to the victim mentality. You want to share something?
Yeah, and I thought about this word committed. Think about dedicated. Right? We are dedicated to not going through something again.
Right.
Sometimes, so here, we know a person who said, until I get to know a person, I don't show them myself.
Yeah, I don't show them who I am.
Well, if you don't show me who you are, I won't get to know you, so you won't feel from me. What you could feel from me if I knew you.
Right.
So by the time I finish treating you like an imposter, which probably perpetuating and strengthening your suspicions about people, then it looks like it's off, but it's going to be off. Because you won't bring yourself to the table. And part of this attachment piece that we were talking about is when you are secure, you're okay with bringing yourself to the table.
Right. I'm with you.
When you're secure, you're okay with bringing yourself to the table. I shared, and it took some years for me to learn this, but it is fool's proof. And that is what I tell myself when I'm misunderstood. Is that you don't have to understand me. Now, that's not what I've always told myself. There was a time when I was misunderstood. I can't even figure out now why I did it, but it felt like I was offended. Why would I be offended because someone who doesn't know me misunderstood me? You are not supposed to know me that well. But before I collected these words that I'm telling you right now, I was offended. Then I was in avoidance. And then I was in suspicion. And then I was listening with a critical ear, looking with a critical eye. There's no winning at that. That's self-sabotage.
When I learned, and I remember I was in the D.C., we were doing the D.C. Soul Factory over in Southeast D.C., not far by, I can't think of the name of it.
Livingston Road, somewhere, P.R. Harris?
Yeah, P.R. Harris.
Trisha R. Harris.
And I remember understanding that I learned how to bond myself to chaos. I learned how to gravitate. And so if somebody would hit me, and I understand turning the other cheek, but I learned to gravitate towards chaos, to gravitate towards controllers, to gravitate towards manipulation, and instead of moving away from a bad situation, I went closer. Now, what I now understand, I want to submit to you all, parents, we are responsible for shaping the psychological mindset of our children. And so if we don't understand this, what happens is I understood that I had an attachment bond. And what is an attachment bond? It's called the attachment bond theory, and we're going to talk from that. But I learned that it was a theory, and that it's for children and infants and caretakers, because parents are responsible for shaping our future relationships. Parents are responsible for shaping our ability to bounce back from misfortune. Parents are responsible, meaning caretakers in our life. They are responsible to help us feel safe and understood. If the mother responds in a kind or a way that she's available to the child, she helps the child to be able to cope with this world. And unfortunately, if the child doesn't learn that, we are hampered as we grow up.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and so we read these books as adults, right?
Mm-hmm.
Boundaries for this and boundaries for that. But our goal is to I'm going to use the notes I wrote, is to align ourselves and attune ourselves with our children's emotions, so that the result of them being in a relationship is that they know how to set proper boundaries. You know how children learn how to set proper boundaries?
How?
Because they still have freedom and autonomy in their own home. Right. But when a parent decides, it's my house, I pay the rent, you don't have a room. And I'm not telling you people slam the door in your face and go in their room and act like they pay rent in the most disrespectful way. But I'm saying over small things, I've seen parents misunderstand, live like they have no their children have no boundaries with them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I say this to my daughter, my granddaughter all the time. Listen, you don't need to have something to say every time you don't need to have something to say about what she does.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not talking about anything critical. I'm just saying you don't need to have anything to say. Sometimes you are crossing a boundary.
If they can't have their own autonomy, and autonomy means to be able to think their own thoughts, feel their own feelings, without any interruption or interference of my verbal interference or my bodily disapproval or whatever it is, if they don't do it, then they learn to either have a hero mentality, or they'll have a victim mentality, a rejection mentality, and you'll become apprehensive in doing things around people because you're afraid. You're afraid that if I expose myself, then what's going to happen? Someone's going to critique me. Someone's going to criticize me. And so we are responsible for that. And this is why it's important to put to death. I think, I don't know if I said it earlier today, it was important that my daughter got to see me as a father, as a parent, put to death some things that was causing division in our family, division in our relationships.
To take responsibility.
Yeah, and take responsibility. And once you put that to death, it gives you the ability to manage things later on. And so the whole goal of over the years, it's been found that if you have a successful relationship, you know how to manage stress, you know how to stay in tune with your emotions, you know how to use communicative body language, you know how to play mutually and engage, you know how to be ready, forgiving, and you know how to relinquish grudges. When you grow up in an environment that is healthy, that is safe. And that doesn't mean that it's a perfect family environment, because there's no such thing as a perfect family. But when everyone and the heads of the family are endeavoring to say, let's make this a safe place to be able to talk, to express our differences, to be different and not be controlled. And once you make that your mission, then you can shape the mentality of your family, and the whole heart of your family changes.
Right. If you, adding to what Deron said, if you don't just say to folks, especially younger folks, the ones that you are grooming, what you're doing, tell them why you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Because we could do the same why two different ways. We could do the same why. And so, and I used to give this example where a mother would tell a child, I need you to go to the store and give me a stick of butter. What is the issue here? Mama needs a stick of butter.
Right.
But the child decides, I don't have to go all the way to the store to get some butter. I'll go next door and ask the neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
We're friends. She borrowed from us. Well, guess what? Did that child do what you really wanted her to do, even though he or she didn't do it the way you wanted it done?
Right.
And I think a lot of the controversy, Deron, comes in that then folks get heated over the way someone didn't do it. Like, I don't borrow butter from people. Listen, you need some butter.
Right.
You need some butter. Go bake. Listen, bake the cake, anime. Go bake the cake. Go do whatever you were going to do. But we create more and more situations because we don't allow ourselves to not just tell people what to do, but tell them why to do it. Because if you just tell them what to do, then you're going to tell them what you would do.
Right.
See, we have this saying, what would Jesus do? I'm going to say, I'm going to give you a better. Why would he do it?
Right.
If you don't know why he did it,
right,
then you're not going to really understand and know what to internalize.
And that's why we want to deal with why am I doing this? Mm-hmm. Remember we said, as a man thinketh in his heart, so he is. As a woman thinketh in their heart, so they are. Mm-hmm. And so if you're not careful, you don't understand that there is a reason why you do what you do. Mm-hmm. And once you find the feeling behind the thought, yes, the belief behind the thought, mm-hmm, not just the feeling, but the belief behind the thought, then you can put it to death. But many of us are so afraid to sit with our own thoughts, mm-hmm, and sit with ourselves and deal with, we can have some very dark thoughts, or we can have some very confusing thoughts. And I've even heard in this season where there's some doctors that don't want to show that they're in need because they're used to being the ones who are on point, nurses on point. But now they have to also realize, I must find what is the belief behind this thought that I'm having.
Absolutely, because it is the belief that's going to trigger the thought, and it's the thought that's going to trigger the feeling.
Right.
And that's why at the end of the day, you have to go back to the root. What do you believe? What is the pattern? What do you believe? And if you go back and you address that, I said this maybe Wednesday. Mm-hmm. Who rejects you? Does someone really reject you?
It's what you tell yourself.
Right. It is the way you are defining the situation. And if you reframe it, listen, and I underfeel, it's a feeling. And oftentimes it was a feeling that's connected to something that has happened way in the past.
Right.
And all of a sudden, you think that that's what you're going through and that's what someone else is doing. And I remember, but when you're in touch with your feelings, those are your triggers. And you can stop and say, why did I'll use a good friend of mine who does it, but why did I have that feeling when Gail wasn't available? Let me just use that as an example. Gail, that ain't true. But Gail wasn't available. Why would I have that feeling about this person that I know and I trust? Why would I have that feeling? Well, I would have that feeling because my body is trying to tell me that there's something I haven't let go of, and it's something I haven't laid down.
There you go. We can't. I was just thinking about the mask and all the different things that's happening. There's some people who are putting their own lives and other people's lives in jeopardy because they can't let go. I'm not going to let nobody tell me what to do. I'm not going to tell. So now I'm going to give you some concrete things and we can answer why. Insecurity. When you're insecure, that can be a problem in your life because you maybe, and the why could be you didn't have proper sufficient structure or recognition and understanding, safety, or mutual accord. Your insecurities can lead us. Now, here is the why. Some of us can tune out and turn off at the drop of a dime.
Indeed.
We can tune out and turn off at the drop of a dime. But now, what is the why? How can I just tune somebody out? How can I just turn off my emotions? Don't care, don't think about it. Hey, that's their problem. Whatever the case may be. Well, the real is, if your parent or your guardian or your caretaker was unavailable or self-absorbed. I said to you, sometimes we had a parent that came in the house and you couldn't talk to them until after they went through all their routine and said all these things. They go to their room, got to get themselves together, close the door, whatever. You learn, put your feelings on hold. You also learn to be insecure. And you learn as a child, turn your emotions off. Turn your feelings off. Turn your expectations off and tune out. Because if you don't, you're going to hurt again.
Listen, if I could only be happy when you were happy, adult, guardian over me, if I could only introduce to you my joy when you were joyful, which oftentimes didn't happen at the same time,
right?
Then I learned to live without emotional connection. And listen, children are resilient, and you know that because how do you know that? Because you're still here.
Right.
You know you know what you've been through, and you're still here.
Right.
That's how you know you were resilient as a child. And this is why I always tell myself, especially when I get into hard times and tough times as an older person. I remember a major decision I made at 11 years old. And I tell myself, Jill, if you could take that stand at 11, okay, I'm much older than this now, but surely you could do it at 4. If an 11-year-old could take this, surely you can do it at 40. But when you know more, it tends to hurt more. But the bottom line is I had learned to live without emotional connection because I was told to be on someone else's time clock.
Right. And
some of us are told to be on some, I'm too busy, I'm tired, I've been at work all day. And, again, I don't believe most of our parents understood that they needed to do more than to make sure that we were safe, had something to eat, place to sleep. Wasn't going to let anybody knowingly allow someone to physically or sexually abuse us. And our parents really thought that they were doing a good job, but a lot of them didn't know how to deal with assault.
There you go. Literally, the why in this is I could not understand for years how some people, and this is for myself, but I'm just in this example here, how some people could tune out and turn off. And I was like, how could they just leave and not say anything? How could they just not say anything at all? It just doesn't seem affectionate. It doesn't seem compassionate. Especially, this is not the person that they revealed to me who they were. Because sometimes somebody can just roll out and leave the relationship or whatever it is, and you're trying to figure out what's going on. Or some of us, we don't understand, we become emotionally distant in our relationships. We do not allow them. When that person said, you got to get to know me, I thought I had gotten to know them. But then as life hit them, it became clearer and clearer that they were not sharing who they really were.
Right. And that's what I was going to say. No one could get to know you. No one even knows what had the key to get into that room, to that scary room. And I think that you did a whole bunch of things, and we did a whole bunch of things that says you can trust, but that level of distrust was there. And what's the truth about life? Once you have done something and been really good, and it was your safe place, your own safe place, whatever you did to protect yourself, you can always go back there. I will always be someone who is okay with you walking away because I can do it.
Right.
I won't like it for a minute, but because I was able to live and mature and grow without somebody being emotionally available for me. Listen, I hate to say this though, but listen, if a person's mother could be on drugs, come in a house, see that baby crying, don't want them to leave out, then go out and then come back and keep doing that, that child gets used to that. And if you think you're going to come in higher than that until he or she gets healed, more than likely it won't happen. That's why we're doing this today. Because if healing happens, maybe there'll be more than a few relationships that will last and turn into something meaningful.
Right. Let's talk about attachment style. parent style and adult characteristics. These are all we're going to talk about the situation. If the attachment style is secure, that means I find it, and you had this on your thing.
Here's one of the parent styles if you want it. It's a little different from that one, but it's...
I'd like to read the notes that I'm looking at.
Okay, no problem.
All right. And so now, what was this?
You were telling me I had something
secure.
on this
Yeah,
thing.
if you want to read secure here, then you can read that.
Sure.
Not unless that's something that you want to do.
No. Okay, here we go. Secure says this. I find it relatively easy to get close to others and am comfortable depending on them and having them depend on me. I don't often worry about being abandoned or about someone getting too close to me.
Mm-hmm. And so when you have that kind of attachment style, that means that you can be aligned with the child. You can be in tune with a child's emotions because you're secure within yourself. And I tell you, if I wasn't secure, my granddaughter could have made me make some major decisions. But
sometimes she wanted to say hi. Sometimes she didn't feel like speaking.
Right, and I had to
didn't
be
make
secure.
her do it.
Right, and then the adult characteristics is when I said you're able to be empathetic. And you're able to appreciate appropriate boundaries. You're able to set that up because you are secure. But then if your style is one that's avoidant, that is, when you are avoidant, that means your actual parent style is one of unavailable or rejecting. And so if you're someone who avoids, and you were avoided, then your style of parenting was going to be unavailable or rejected. And then after that, as an adult, how do you look as an adult? Well, you avoid closeness, you avoid connection, you stay distant, you stay critical, you stay rigid, you stay intolerant.
Right. And listen, this is the person, remember on the front end of the broadcast, we talk about a person who finally, she's ready to date, she's ready, and somebody comes into her life, and now she's nervous and she's avoiding closeness. She wants closeness. She wants closeness, but it's just it's a battle within. Not saying that you can't move forward, but it's a battle within.
And so let's say, for instance, you was talking about something earlier, ambivalent. That means I don't feel this way, I don't feel that way, I don't have no feelings, or I don't know. Well, if that's your attachment style, then your parent style would be one of being inconsistent and sometimes an intrusive parent when it came to communication. I was telling you before we started to teach this evening, and hopefully we're inspiring someone to be blessed, is to say that if you're not careful, you can become so ambivalent with people that I was telling you about. It was a person who I learned when we lived in Clinton. There was someone who their mother wouldn't let them keep their room the way they wanted to keep their room. And whenever they left their room, their mother would come in and change things around, or their father would come in and switch. It was actually the mother would change things around because she needed everything to be in its proper space, which meant that the child couldn't wear the clothing that they wanted to wear because she had to be able to be critical about these things. Everything had to reflect the text. And so now, once that happened as an adult, if you grow up in an ambivalent home or environment, you'll be anxious and insecure, and you'll be controlling and blaming. Your energy will be used as an adult to blame people, and sometimes to be erratic or unpredictable, and sometimes you can be charming because you had to learn in that space. And I hope they hear what I'm saying and I'm making sense, but you had to learn in that space not to allow yourself to be swayed by anything because it would hurt you again.
Again, when you got someone when you're dealing with a bunch of inconsistencies, and you're not the one in control. When you become the one in control, then you become controlling. When it's your turn to lead, you become controlling. Why? Because maybe this is what you never want to go through again. what I want you all to hear, remember, this is about letting go.
Letting go.
This is about why can't I lay it down?
Why can't I lay it down?
Sometimes you think you're just going through something right now, and most of us have heard, if you've been reading a few books about people who talk about it's in your childhood, but it is in your roots. It is in your roots. And I've seen people go at themselves and get mad at themselves and think that something is terribly wrong with them because I keep finding myself in this.
They think I should have known better, and that's not true.
Well, this one you can't take notes. You got to pull up the roots.
Right.
This one you can take notes. You can look at someone else's life. You can watch somebody else's life. But this one has to be changed from the inside.
Why do I used to keep saying, why do I keep allowing myself to be in this situation? Why do I keep setting myself up? Why can't I follow through on my commitments and relationships? What is happening with me? That is because I was committed to putting a roadblock in my way and in others' ways, and did not understand that when you grow up in your attachment style, if it's one that's disorganized, and that is the parent style, if you're disorganized, it means as your parenting style means that you will ignore or wouldn't see the child's needs, and you will have behavior that's traumatizing, that's frightening, because when you had a disorganized attachment style, then what's going to happen as an adult? You'll be chaotic, insensitive, explosive, abusive, and untrusting, even while at the same time you want people to love you.
I have a friend. I love her dearly, but she is addicted to chaos. Now, she is so good she's really good at what she does. But the way that she gets herself, she motivates herself, is to find something chaotic and then get to going. Get to I'm going to call using that wonderful gift she has that ain't producing much in that scenario. But I just said she's addicted to chaos, and I wish that something would change, because our conversations now are getting fewer and fewer because I don't have the space for someone who keeps creating something.
Right.
It's like you're talking, and you can see it ebbing off and fading away, and then she'll find something else to make meaningful, some other chaotic situation to make meaningful.
Right.
And I think that when you grow up in a space where and I know that trauma is something that she's been through in terms of a parenting style, and I know it says that in the parenting style of this person who has a disorganized attachment style, is that they didn't see the child's needs. And some parents don't see the child's needs. You see the child, you see the needs, you see what you're doing for the child, but you don't see the child's needs, because that means you're not attached and you're not invested in what this child was going through. And I know this person was scared. She was really, really scared. And no one noticed it when she needed it.
Bottom line is that unless you change the rules, unless you change the rules that you've been living by, and when I say change the rules, unless you make a decision that, okay, it's no longer acceptable for me. There was a season in our relationship that, although we were close and we were friends, I would say, Jill, this behavior is no longer acceptable to me. This language with you is no longer acceptable to me. It is no longer acceptable for us to have this kind of discussion over this kind of issue and it go all over the place. It's no longer acceptable for me to storm out the house. It's no longer acceptable for me to punch a hole in the wall. It's no longer acceptable for me to act like I am this rageaholic, this psychopath, sociopath. That I no longer accept that behavior from me. I am now going to surrender my soul to the Spirit. And I remember, and it probably was in the last 3 years or so, or it was longer than that, where I said, here's what God has said. And you tell me if you concur. Because I would say something like that to say, here is what wisdom is saying. Deron, do this, this, this. It is no longer acceptable for me to hide myself from you. Mm-hmm. It's not acceptable for me to hear you it's no longer acceptable for me to see you get upset and then me to start huffing and puffing, mm-hmm. and then I start crying, but you're being unfair. Mm-hmm. What's acceptable is for me to respond. Mm-hmm. And to listen. And what is acceptable when I said change the rules? You may say something, but I don't respond until I know I understand what it is that you're saying. And I say, tell me, you're saying this, 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 and this, and then it takes a little longer to communicate, but I'm saying, so when you say this, 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 is this what you mean? And then I ask you, did I get it? And if you say I got it, I say right. And if I missed it out, you'll let me know. But it's no longer acceptable for me to act like a fool.
Right. And let me say this, Ron, and you all, this is not easy on the ego, on the flesh. Mm-hmm. In our journey to healthy communication, mm-hmm. and you would say, so Jill, tell me what you hear me say. Mm-hmm. Now, that was for the point of me to tell him what I heard him saying. But you know how my ear heard it? You ain't going to do it. I got to tell you what, somehow that became ugly, mm-hmm. for me. And I felt trapped or set up or pushed or forced until I was ready to lay something down and say, I want to give healthy communication a chance.
Right.
I want to give it a chance. And I think that, my concern and prayer is that we're not just piling on information for you. Mm-hmm. We know the depths of it. We know the spirit of it. But for you, that it's not just feels like someone's just piling on information. And it won't become anything that gets past the surface until you open the doors for it to come in. Mm-hmm. I went to Psalm 139, which is one of my favorites, 23. It says, search me thoroughly, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. And see if there is any wicked or hurtful way in me, and lead me in the everlasting way. That's Psalm 139, 23. Listen, this is what I hope. If you are open to change and you're saying, I want change, I want a healthy relationship. God, I want a healthy relationship. I want an authentic relationship. If you want an authentic relationship, you're going to have to be authentic yourself. Mm-hmm. Because if you come to a relationship and you're not authentic, then the best another person can do for you is love an imposter. So the union still won't be authentic. But if you ask, search me, you know why you have to ask to search you? Because you're not going to do a good job yourself. Right. I'm just not going to do a job myself. What I mean by that is I'm going to go but so far, and then as soon as I get scared, I'll probably turn around and give myself some excuses for continuing in whatever I was doing. But the statement was here, search me, know my heart. Search me thoroughly, oh God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. And see if there is any wicked or hurtful way in me. Is there a hurtful way in you?
Right. That's it.
Is there one in you? Ask for it. Don't make somebody else responsible for shaping you and getting you together. Ask for it. Show that you have no resistance. Show that you want that new you, and ask for it and surrender, lay it down, give up whatever it is that's causing you to resist. Being honest about there being a hurtful way.
It's not about winning. It's not about being right. It's not about, I got her on that one, and when she say this, I'm going to say this, and when he say this, I'm going to say that. It's about saying, you know what? I'm going to make a spiritual commitment. I said this earlier today, and Lord willing, if we get around to it, I said, take the change challenge. I said, and while I was talking, I said, the change challenge is whenever I'm presented with a situation that requires me to surrender my will, mm-hmm. that requires me to calm myself down, that requires me to surrender to some information that I was not previously attuned to or you brought into my space, I'm taking the challenge. Mm-hmm. If a friend or a family member presents that, and it don't mean just because you say something to me, I got to change. But the change challenge is when I decide I'm going to commit to not going emotional. I'm going to commit to not going all opinionated. I'm going to commit to tell the truth about everything. Share my feelings and my thoughts and my actions. I'm going to commit to have a non-judgmental ear. And just to listen to what you're saying and not interrupt you, but hear what you're saying so I know this is what you're saying. It's all about surrender. And the day you learn how to surrender and say, I want peace, I don't want my point, I want peace, then you're going to be able to grow in the relationship. So hopefully, we gave them some terms, Jill, but I want you to know, we're sharing this because having coached thousands of couples and people in relationship and having coached people and sat down and done coaching in our home and coaching in other people's homes with families and couples, we understand that unless you make a commitment to expand your consciousness and surrender your pride and hubris to the Spirit of God, then you're not going to see harmony.
And when he says to the Spirit of God, I want you to hear the Spirit of truth. Mm-hmm. I want you to hear truth. Listen, this takes honesty. It starts change. The change challenge starts with you being honest with you. Nobody else has to be in a room with you for you to be honest with you. And then when you're honest with you, put it in the light. Watch that. There are too many of you all who think that something's wrong with you.
Ain't nothing wrong with you.
There's too many, and secretly you think something's wrong with you, secretly. And everybody else that sees you on the outside, they will never say that you would think that because you look like you got it going on. But when you're in a room by yourself and just with yourself, you have that conversation, what am I not doing? What don't I have? And so the best thing you can do is get to the best life that you can get into, the best you that you can get to, and then you'll see what'll come from there. But it's just too many people who think that there's something wrong with them, and they change and trying to follow these trends and whatever else people are saying. This is one more person coming to say this is what you do, and this is what you do to have a man. This is what you have to do to have a woman. Listen, I decided one day. And this is where my start was. I decided I want to be a good woman. Mm-hmm. My first goal is not to be a good wife.
Right.
Because that's a role. A good mother, that's a role. I said, my thought is, if I'm a good person, woman, the best that I know how to be, then guess what? I'm going to take that everywhere I go. So God, search me, please, and help me with my anxious thoughts.
In 1997, it's amazing. You're talking about good. I pulled up. In 1997, the movie Good Will Hunting came out. And that movie changed my life forever. Matt Damon, Good Will Hunting. And it's not a children's movie, but if you want to understand your why and how you relate, and what triggered me to look that movie up, Jill, is when you said, I decided I wanted to be a good woman, a good person.
Just a good human being.
I wanted to be a good human being. And when I looked at Matt Damon, Good Will Hunting, I was able to understand some things about myself. And it's not your fault. When you see it, it'll make sense. And I don't want to give it up. Robin Williams was in it. He did an excellent job as a counselor. But it's not your fault. And the day you come to an understanding that I am an amalgamation of all my experiences, I am the sum total of everything, you'll begin to believe that what you are experiencing is always your fault. And the day I took that out of my repertoire, I was able to make a change, Jill. I was able to say, listen, all right, Deron, you didn't set out to do this. You didn't set out for that person to respond this way. You didn't have an ulterior motive. You weren't being controlling. You were just doing the best you knew how to do at that time.
And you were being you. It just looks like something that someone else was doing.
Yeah, and when my tone struck the same tone that maybe one of their controlling parents did or something,
then that label came out.
The label came out, and I would say, I had to understand, listen, there's some people you just don't like to be instructed. You don't like to be told what to do. But it wasn't that I was controlling, but then I had to get rid of my rejection complex to say, God, you know the heart. You know what I did. You know what was involved. And yeah, there may have been some times where I may have crossed the line, but you know my heart and you know what's happening. And once I learned to surrender that, Goodwill Hunting, he had to make a decision if he was going to prosper in some of the darkest space of his life, the chaos and the clutter that was going on in his mind. He had to make a decision. And his friend had to speak truth to him. His friends had to speak truth to him. Because what this speaks to is the anger that are in some of us. The anger. This movie speaks to the anger and what we go through. And it gives us a why. And if you pay attention to this, I guarantee you, you will understand. Many of us, we are caught in a vortex. A vortex of chaos. But we are firm believers. Everything that we said, take it to the bank. Don't take it to the bank. Take it to your creator. And we are firm believers and assured that what we are sharing will change your life forever if you apply it in your life. I'm done with this. If you want to close it out, I'm done with it.
Listen, your life is not about finding fault with yourself or someone else. It's not about whose fault it is. It's what's true. What's the truth? What's the truth? Until you stop finding fault, find truth. Because once you find the truth, you'll be in a better position to find a solution. Instead of complaining or fault finding, you'll be a truth finder and a solution finder. And so, if you can get past that, that's what grace is for. Grace is for you being able to walk into your life knowing that you made all kinds of mistakes, missed calls. But, a mistake is that you missed that take. You get to take it over. That's a mistake. You get to take it over. And so hopefully you will put yourself in a position, you'll believe that there are plenty of people in the world who understands what it's like to take it over because they've done it themselves. There are lots of people in the world, the one or two that's rejecting you. There are plenty of people that will accept you who have recognized in this world that they too have fallen short of the mark for their life, and they haven't done anything perfectly. And I hope that you find those people. If you can't find those people, I tell you what you can do. We have a church service at thesoulfactory.com. We do that. We are the pastors and the leaders of that church or that ministry. And guess what? You can connect to what we do. Go on to thesoulfactory.com. There's all kinds of things for men. A safe place for men to talk, safe place for women to talk. Why is that? Because everybody matters. And when you're free, we all win. When you win, we win. Mm-hmm. And this is why we're doing what we're doing. So I hope you enjoyed this broadcast. And Deron,
and I personally last week called the prayer line myself. Okay. This is like the second time that I've called the prayer line and said, hey, this is what's happening. Can you pray for me? Mm-hmm. And I'm so glad because the next day I felt their prayers. I felt the prayers that night. I felt the prayers the following day. And it has helped me to get back up. And I had to call the prayer line at a very low emotional moment where you're so used to being strong for everyone. And I said on the phone, I said, guys, listen, I can't be strong for you right now. Mm-hmm. I need you to lift my arms up. Because I would like to be able to be this person that I'm sort of being right now, but I can't because I'm going through. I'm hurting. And I'm being dealt with.
There you go. And what is our goal? You hear what he said? You said, I'm going through. Mm-hmm. Listen, you all, we're going to go through until we break through.
Yeah.
We're going to go through until we break through. Sometimes you don't go straight into a breakthrough. You just got to go through. But you got to trust that if you go through enough time, eventually you're going to get to know yourself pretty well. You're going to break some of those patterns, And that's when you're going to have that breakthrough. But what happens? A lot of times we quit the wrong.
Right.
We quit
and would
before
you
we
know what
should.
the prayer line is? I don't even know.
The prayer line number is 563-999-2684. And we do it 3 times a day in increments of 4, meaning we do it from, I believe, from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock a.m. Every 15 minutes.
Right.
So if you come in, you don't have to listen to somebody, one person saying, give a whole prayer for 1 hour. It's every 15 minutes.
And they take prayer requests?
Yeah, so
and
they can
what
stop
are
and
you
take
going
prayer
through?
requests.
Right.
You can go to the soulfactor.com and do the prayer request right now.
Right.
Also, it's 7 to 8, 12 to 1, and 6 to 7 p.m. And again, it's all the same. The number's 563-999-2684. Now, what we're doing right now is a little something with spirit. And that is, guess what? Sometimes you need just a little wisdom, and it
Just
doesn't come out a certain way. We get to say things and talk a certain way, do it in this form that we may not want to say on a Sunday
Right.
a morning. But listen, what we do is we have Soldiers Outreach Incorporated. That is our outreach. This is a part, little something, the spirit is a part of our outreach. And what we would like to do, if you feel that you were blessed, if you feel that, okay, God, how can I say thank you to Jill and Deron? How can I say thank you for the Spirit of Truth for waking me up? Go to kidseatfreenow.com. You can help us feed some kids. Hey, you can't go wrong with helping us feed some kids. Help us feed some kids. If you don't have money to give, when you go in there, they have an Amazon wish list. You don't even have to figure out what products to buy. The Amazon wish list shows up. You decide what products you want to donate. You buy them, you pay for them, and then they ship it to the home of one of the people who help make sure that kids get fed every week. So this is we're going to do until we can't do it anymore.
And we're going to increase, when I heard Kids Eat Free, he had me go out and buy big
Those pots.
big pots,
Big pots.
and they're big. And he said buy the outdoor cookers and all these things. And he said, listen, that's when I went and got stoves. I got some old stoves and refurbished them to make sure they could be used outside, because he told me this time is coming out. That little round thing you see on the porch, the round stone, that's a pizza brick. Because he said there's going to become a season where people are going to want a pizza. They're going to want some things, and they're not going to be able to go into a store. He says, but you can equip this stove. I took an old stove, tore it apart myself, and put it back together to be able to do this for Kids Eat Free, to do this for Tinker Toddler Lab, to do this to give people an experience. And now with my mentor, I text his daughter today.
Dick Gregory?
Dick Gregory, the late Dick Gregory. I text his daughter today to wish her and Lillian Gregory happy Mother's Day. And I said, and I understand, Ayana, that you may not be a mother, but you have been a mother to many in terms of your wisdom and what you're doing. And I said, give my love to Lillian Gregory. But I'm saying that to say, Dick Gregory told me, he said, Deron, you are doing something that was taking place in the 60s and the 70s. He said, continue to feed people. But I had no idea I would now see food banks going through this now. This is amazing.
This is where we are. And so what do we know? Again, go to kidseatfreenow.com. Because listen, kids shouldn't be worried about, kids should be able to live in the present. And there's lots of kids who are not living in the present because they are worried about what they're going to eat tomorrow. And we know how to protect ourselves from that. So hopefully we can protect them from that. From kidseatfreenow.com, you can give a financial donation, or you can go to the wish list.
Amen.
And do it that way. And that is the way that you can say thank you to what you have experienced today with us.
Amen. Hey, God bless you all. Sign language to Pastor Liz. Rest in peace. She taught me this. I love you and I beat you. We beat you to it. We love you. And I pray that you are able to spread the love to someone. God bless you all.
Good night and happy Mother's Day to
Happy
everyone.
Mother's Day to all.